All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So the Jets made it official. They went out and they hired Brian Duker as their defensive coordinator. All indications are pointing to Aaron Glenn not only just calling the defense, but also having a bigger say in the defense as well, shifting away from that CEO managerial style of head coach, that overseer approach, to I got to get this defense back on track. If I'm going down swinging, throwing haymakers with my guys and my style. This looks to be the plan. Now, with that said, we have to talk about what additions this football team is going to be making in the offseason, right? Look, we don't know how it's going to play out. We have free agency. We have the flexibility to make trades. We have 4 picks in the top 45, including the second overall pick and the first pick in the second round. Man, so many opportunities to get better. But here's the deal. Again, it's going to be a Glenn defense. The DC choice that he decided to bring in is someone that he's worked with before in the past from the Lions. So it makes you think, okay, if Glenn is going to be, look, let's be honest, right? The entire world basically is looking at the Jets laughing, just with how everything is gone on, right? Glenn feels like he's back up against the ropes, and he's got to start firing some haymakers. So personally, I think it's totally realistic to assume that the Jets will be targeting a bunch of former Lions. And honestly, I do think it makes a ton of sense for the Jets to do that. Quite frankly, I felt like the Jets were going to do that last season, but it didn't really happen. But there are 4 big-time Lions defensive free agents that come in and make a lot of sense. Obviously, they know Glenn. Obviously, they fit the system. But most importantly, they're going to be cheaper as well. Yes, the Jets, it's an undesirable location, and they're coming off a 3-win season. But we're not talking about $100 million, $90, $80, $70, $60 million for these players. No, it's going to be 1-year contracts, 2-year contracts, maybe a 3-year contract here or there. So let's take a look at these 4 players here. And quite frankly, I would not be surprised in the slightest if the Jets have contact with all 4. So it's kind of like a win-win, right? Glenn gets his guys, we get upgrades, we get system fits, we have potential replacements for some of the, deficiencies from last year. And if it doesn't work out and the whole thing is just a disaster once again, okay, just 1 and 2-year contracts, and that's really it, and we move on, turn the page. So with that being said, let's dive into the first player here. We all know who it's going to be. Alex Anzalone, Thor, aka Thor, right? Alex Anzalone just embodies everything that you want from a mentality standpoint at the linebacker position. When you want to talk about physicality, grit, violence, hardworking, I mean, you feel like Alex Anzalone, if the NFL and the Detroit Lions allowed it, he would walk out there with a body full of broken bones just to go out and play the position, because he loves it. He loves football. He's a prideful player. I mean, man, he's always coming up with a big hit, a clutch moment, screaming, hyping up other guys, flexing, celebrating. He's a massive team guy. Like, he does so much off the field as well in the locker room. Players, coaches, they all love Alex Anzalone. They all love him. And Alex has been, publicly endorsing Aaron Glenn for a long time. And also, you look at the development from Alex Anzalone going from New Orleans to Detroit. Glenn put a lot on his table as defensive coordinator, being the literal quarterback of the defense. And Alex showed up and freaking dominated and really had the best season of his career. So that's always a positive sign, right? The more we load responsibilities onto a player's plate, the better they get. That's freaking sick, right? You would think, okay, you're probably going to be going backwards. Very rarely do you feel like, okay, let's give this guy more and more opportunities, more and more responsibilities, and he's just getting better and better and better and better. Now, Alex is 31. We kind of know who he is. I feel like we've seen his ceiling, but overall, he could play middle linebacker. He could play outside linebacker. He can drop into coverage and have success. I feel like he's a pretty solid pass rushing linebacker as well when he's asked to do it. He's really good against the run. He's tough as hell. I mean, how many times did you see a tight end catch a pass over the middle of the field and a corner just fly off him? I mean, we saw a lot of that with Sauce Gardner throughout the years, just on top of ball carriers, trying to bring them down. They're just picking up extra yards, 4, 5, 6 yards of just, post contact yardage, man. It was a joke. Alex Anzalone comes in and just sticks offensive pass catchers, right, and ball carriers. He is built like a rock. So Alex Anzalone, I feel like, would be a fantastic addition to this football team, as well as providing leadership and also helping out some of the younger guys. Here's a quick point, right? And look, I understand the optic around Aaron Glenn, but really on this channel, I try to be as objective as possible, bringing up both sides of the coin, not trying to cherry pick info to fit a certain narrative. I think it's very important that we talk about positives and negatives. And one massive positive for the Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji regime, like, I completely understand it's not a popular thing to do, right? Hype Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji up at this stage of the offseason based off of how this first season went. But the reality is, you look at the majority of the players that disappointed from last season compared to the players that impressed and grew, and you kind of feel like, man, like, this was an awesome find. There's a pretty clear separation on those players. The players that were recently brought in, for the most part, had success. Brandon Stevens really turned it around. Jawan Briggs, one of the best by the numbers defensive tackles in football, who we got for free. Jarvis Brown-Lee, instantly helping out in the running game, instantly providing physicality, instantly an upgrade over Michael Carter in the slot. I felt like in the small sample size, Azareye'h Thomas looked like he belonged. Like, he made multiple plays on the football, multiple plays on wide receiver, and he only had a handful of snaps, and granted, injured, got hurt. I don't want to go as far as to say, oh, AZ Thomas is going to be an injury-prone player, but it does make me wonder a little bit, because it wasn't just he had the one injury. Like, he got sent to the blue tent a couple times. He would have to come out of the game. But overall, like, I feel really good about all those players. Then you look down and it's just like, whoa, these are all brand new guys. These aren't like established players that, anybody, can work with anybody in any system. No, Brownlee was traded for nothing. Briggs was traded for free again. The one player that didn't work out was Andre Sisco on the defensive side of the football. But with that, it's tough to blame the coaches when you go back and you watch the L22 and you have a player jogging to the football, just taking horrible angles, just plays still going on, and he's just not even giving it 100%. Very disappointing stuff there. But for the most part, right, when you look at the overall Harrison Phillips was another, I would say, building block addition this offseason. So if you want to take the optimistic positive route, you can say Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn, like, the players that they did actually bring in, granted it wasn't a ton, but the players that they did bring in showed promise. It was the solid guys for the most part that disappointed. The Jamian Sherwoods, the Tony Adams, the Quincy Williams, the Jermaine Johnsons, the Will McDonalds of the world, like those, Michael Carter. It was the old regime. All right, it was the old regime, and we heard the same exact thing when after Salah's first year, where he was like, I need system fits. Yeah, 32nd ranked defense. I'm looked at as horrible. Jeff Ulbrich was looked at as the worst defensive coordinator in football that needed to be fired immediately, and they said, we just need system fits. Joe Douglas went out and added some system fits, and boom, all of a sudden the defense was rock solid. So I did want to throw that out there quickly. Again, I understand that's not popular, but it is, I would say, a fact, right, when we look at some of the bright spots on defense. Now, we also have 30-year-old Alquadin Muhammad, who, man, is coming off the best season of his career as a rotational pass rusher, played in all 17 games, however, started in none of them, but still managed to put up 11 sacks on the year. I think this would be a sweet pickup to add to a very thin defensive end room. The way I'm kind of looking at this defensive line right now, Jermaine Johnson and the second overall pick are going to be the two starters. Whether that's an Arvell Reese, whether that is a Reuben Bain, whether that's a David Bailey, I want that player starting along with Jermaine Johnson. Now, we do know that the Jets like to rotate a lot. I don't know if that's going to change with the DC swap, but if we look at the percentages from last season, Michael Clemens was on the field a ton. Tyler Barron was on the field a ton. Brady McGregor was on the field a ton. That needs to change. Again, number 2 overall pick, starting 4-3 D end. Jermaine Johnson, starting 4-3 D end. As the rotational guys, we have Will McDonald coming in, fresh legs off the bench, who can really just pin his ears back and attack the quarterback, while at the same time minimizing his deficiencies as a player, which is run, stuffing, edge, setting. Right? If Will McDonald is not good in that area, I don't want him doing that for a team that is inconsistent. And ideally, I want him attacking the passer. So if we can get him more rest throughout the course of a game, and we don't really have a liability if McDonald's not out on the field, all of a sudden it's kind of like this 2-for-1 sweet bonus. So I mean, let me ask you, would you be on board with that? Let's just say, for example, it is Reese or Bain or Bailey at 2, Jermaine Johnson, and the 2 rotational guys are Will McDonald and Al-Quadin Muhammad. Again, 11 sacks, starting in 0 games. Now, his sacks did come in bulks, right? Like, he would go like 0 sacks, 2.5, 0 sacks, 0 sacks, 3 sacks, 0 sacks, 0, like as a game-by-game log. But I would take Muhammad every single day of the week over what we currently had last season as rotational backups. So, fits the system. I think he'd be cheap. There's a rumor that the Lions could overpay to bring him back because Detroit has a ton of free agents overall, and they obviously need some work to help get back to the playoffs. But yeah, Muhammad, I think the Jets should definitely take a look at. Now, we also have Amik Robertson at 27 years old, corner from the Lions, someone who isn't the best corner in the world, right? But he is versatile. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. Man, is he a violent player or what? He kind of, his personality and like watching him in interviews and stuff, he actually reminds me a lot of some of my buddies that I grew up with back in the day. Just such a leave it out all on the field. I'm not gonna back down from anybody. I want to go one-on-one with the team's number 1 wide receiver, and I want the best challenge because I want to prove to everybody that I belong and that I can lock these guys down. Now, what's really cool too about Robertson is that he's a lot like Brownlee, where he can play on the outside or the inside. And we all know that the Detroit Lions have been beat up throughout the years. They've asked Amik to step in, and they've put him in some not so great situations, whether it was with Glenn or without Glenn there. You got to go in and cover this guy, and now cover this guy, now line up in the slot, now back out to the outside, now back into the slot. If Robertson's added to this mix, right, added to this Jets DB room, again, much like Alex Anzalone, much like Muhammad, he fits the system, he checks that leadership box, but these guys would all be extensions of the coaching staff as well. Which I think is very, very important because Glenn is he's pushing the chips into the middle of the table, right? He, again, is going to be throwing haymakers at the NFL with his guys in his style. If it was Wink Martindale, if it was DeMarcus Covington, if it was Durante Jones, I don't know. I don't know if we would have that same philosophy. It would kind of would feel like it would be like a 50-50, right, of overall defensive mindset. But now it's fully expect Detroit Lions style. Fully expect Detroit Lions style. And Amik Robertson, you kind of feel like embodies that whole Dan Campbell, physical, violent grit. So Amik Robertson, I think, would be a nice sleeper addition to a corner room that I think on paper looks good, but we have one injury and then it's just like, whoa, this is a real big need. So I like Amik. And then last but not least, we have DJ Reader at 31 years old. And by the numbers, DJ Reader is an effective pass rushing DT at 6'3", 330, and he can also stop the run. He's a 17-game starter for Detroit, and he did initially sign a multi-year deal to sign on to Glenn's defense. And so when I'm always talking about bolstering the depth of the team, raising the floor of this Jets team, this is a type of signing. All of these are like floor raising types of moves where instead of going from like a Harrison Phillips to an undrafted free agent when Harrison Phillips needs rest or you want to pull him out of the game, you're going from, again, a solid NFL player to a solid NFL player. I felt like a lot of the times, you can make the same argument at wide receiver, you can make the same argument at edge, right? I mean, we were just talking about it with McGregor and Barron and these guys. where same argument with safety. From an on paper like Madden standpoint, yeah, our starters look good, but if they're only out there 50-60% of the time, that means that 40% of the game someone else is going to be out there doing the same job. And if that 40% is being occupied by a practice squad player, no disrespect, but just purely looking at talent, you're not really going to be in a great position. But if you can supplement that 40% with I would say, at least an average NFL rotational player, now, again, that floor has been raised. The cracks of the defense have now been filled in. And look, I don't want to make it sound like these guys, Harrison Phillips is Aaron Donald and DJ Reed's going to be coming in as prime Ndamukong Suh or anything, but I do think it's important to, again, understand what the team needs are and understanding the roles. Understand that we're not going to be getting, all pros at every single position, including backups. If we want to rotate like we do, you better have good enough rotational players. It's kind of like football 101, So we didn't have the talent, we didn't have the experience, we didn't have the bodies to rotate in and out as we please. So again, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. I think all 4 of these players make sense. I would welcome all 4 of these players to the mix, add them to this Jets locker room, help be a coach on the field. And look, whether we like Glenn, we don't like Glenn, think he's going to figure it out, think he's going to be fired before Halloween, this is our coach. This is the direction that we're moving forward in. So we got to try to find solutions and be realistic with where this team is currently at. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate it. And as always, go Jets.